So if you're ready, say I'm ready, because we got a lot to cover in a short amount of time. Real quick, obviously, for those of you I haven't had a chance to meet, and Colleen, thanks for all those great accolades. But this is me. This is my family. I'll just give you my quick story. All right, I had a job. How many of you can relate? You've had a job before? My background was sports marketing. I'll kind of touch on that here in this presentation. But I lived in an airport 6 days a week, and really I started to look around at my job or my career, realizing if I stayed on that same path, I could look at people who had been there for 15 or 20 years already. And I saw that that was the path I was on. That was probably exactly where I'd end up. I didn't like that. I didn't want the idea of corporate America to take the best hours of my day, and then I had to try to give my wife what's left over, or certainly give my children what's left over. Can anybody relate to that from corporate America? I fell in love with this career choice. Today, this is my wife, Katie, in the picture. As you can tell, I got a lot of kids. That's one of the downsides to free time, all right, is a lot of quality time you can spend with your family, all right? But we do have 4 little kids. The oldest just turned 5. Love being a full-time dad. That's what Legal Shield's allowed us to be able to do. For those of you who either listen to the group call Monday mornings, you've probably heard, a lot about the success we've had in the group arena. Just some bullet points about what's happened for us on a business side. Last year we finished top 5 in the entire company with new accounts open. So I'm going to teach you some things today that I wish I would have known then. And that way you maybe don't have to make the same mistakes, and you can open up a lot of accounts, all right, from here on out. Because there's some things you need to go build the house. Would you agree? No point in starting to build if you forgot you needed some tools to do the project. So I'll teach you what I wish I would have known then. Actually, since April of 2012, 50 new groups we've opened up. All right, so that's a lot of groups. Just wrote over 1,000 personal memberships. Just got recognized recently for that. We do a lot of training, so actually we split most of our groups we do. So probably closer to 2,000 apps that we've wrote, where we've given the other half away to somebody who we've worked with on an account. Last year, actually just in April, had an award for the top 10 retention in the entire company with our organization. So our team, thank you for writing business that just doesn't show up once, but that continues to go on. And I learned that obviously from my mentor, Mr. Don Wilson, I see sitting in the audience as well. He's one of the top retention guys in the company. Recognized as a national field trainer. And just recently I was in Atlanta with a meeting with the folks that are heading up our broker division, working with insurance companies. And I work with some of the biggest insurance companies in the country. And Legal Shield started a division called the Broker Elite Division. So maybe you didn't know that, but there is a division. I just got named to that team. So excited to be working with insurance companies. And I think some of the things we'll lay out to you here today could help you go do that and build those same relationships. All right. So let me get into it. And I've kind of, what I wish I would have known in the beginning that I've figured out now is that group really boils down to 4 steps. I mean, there's a lot of little 1% things you can do along the way, but when I'm talking to an insurance company or when I'm talking to a business partner that's going to do B2B sales with me, what I'm trying to figure out is to help people understand the sales cycle. All right, so here's our 4 steps that I've boiled this process down to as far as the sales cycle goes. And I'm going to start backwards, all right? Obviously, the end goal is to write business that stays on the book. So you can build a book of business and have a residual type of income base. But let me ask you a question. Who cares how good you can service and retain any business if you can't do a very good enrollment to get anybody to make a decision to join the program? Does that make sense? So if you take a step back, the enrollment, who cares how good you can enroll and how great your employee presentation is if you can't do an effective meeting with the decision maker? Meaning, I'm going to talk to you on a couple nuggets and maybe more in a Q&A session or around the event this weekend. But, I mean, there's a lot of things that really, in that decision maker meeting, make for the difference, all the difference in the world of how good you're going to do your enrollment. So I didn't want the decision maker just to say yes. I wanted the decision maker to say yes and a host of other things in order to make for an effective environment to do a good enrollment. All right? And some of you guys who have done groups before, you say, why? They told me yes, but then they were supposed to have 200 employees, and I showed up, and only 8 of them were there. Right? So I found out, and I learned the wrong way of a lot of things, what not to do as well. But again, who cares how good you can do a meeting with the decision maker if step 1 is getting to the decision maker? A lot of times when I started, I would find out that somebody could get me a meeting with somebody, but it wasn't the person who could make the decision. That adds a lot of headache to you. It creates a follow-up mess. I'm not going to tell you it doesn't happen sometimes, but I mean, obviously the key is to get as close or to the decision maker as possible. Would you guys agree? So I've broken it down in 4 steps. That's our sales cycle. And I'm actually working on an ebook that's going to come out. You can learn more about that. Follow me on Facebook right there. I'm not going to get into all that stuff right now. But listen, today we're going to talk about the goal of the workshop is how to create a list, some basic stuff. Some things I learned from the networking side is the power of a list And for those of you guys who have been in this for a while, maybe this is just a nugget. You're going to go, oh, I got it. Okay, the list isn't really who you put on your list. I mean, you guys understand the concept of LinkedIn or Facebook, and you see all the people you're actually connected to. So if I make a list of 100 people that I know, how many of you guys realize they know people that you don't know? And instead of thinking that the people on our list have to be the ones to be the end result of what we're after, what if the people on our list were just the links to who we wanted to get to? And here's all I know about a list. A big list is going to give you a lot of confidence. A little list, unfortunately, forces you to have commission on your breath. And that's maybe why you're stuck right now trying to figure out how to have a breakthrough in the group arena, or maybe even in the team building side. If you don't have a lot of people that you have a chance to talk to or to ask for help, or that are wondering who they know that makes the decisions at where they work, obviously, again, you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself with just a little list. So I would encourage you, in some of the exercises, go home and apply them and really get serious, because I'm always trying to add to my list. Always. And you probably should be always trying to add to your list too. If a company tells me no today, it's okay. I probably need to do an enrollment in 2 years anyway if that's the right time for them. Does that make sense? So it's about having a lot of stuff in the pipeline. I never prejudge people. There's nothing worse than thinking, you know what, that company probably has employees that can't afford it, or things of that nature. I found out people who make the least get mistreated the most. That's something I never realized. And I also found out that I didn't want to make the decision for them if they, wanted to get a will for their family, or if they were getting harassed by their mortgage company. So again, don't prejudge. And there's nothing worse than finding out, a business right around the corner from you, added Legal Shield 2 months from now because you just didn't want to stop by and introduce yourself to them. Okay, so don't prejudge. And we'll get into some of these workshop activities towards the end. I'm just going to touch on this part real quick because, this is stuff you should know, but I didn't do this basic thing when I got started. I didn't have a way to track who I was going to talk to and keep up with it, and I really didn't plan my time. One of the worst parts about this career choice is you're in business for yourself, meaning you have no boss. You can do this on your terms, however you want to do it. And I found a lot of times, you saw I have a lot of children. You see I'm happily married, and sometimes I and my family would take advantage of my time. Meaning, well, just call them tomorrow. We want to go to the beach today. Hey, just call them tomorrow. I need to go run the errand. We need to go to the grocery store. But when I started doing something simple like scheduling my time, first of all, the big change was I started to respect my time more. And then when you start to respect your time more, it's weird. The people around you will realize you're treating it more like a career, more like a job, more like a business, and then they'll start to respect your time. The other thing, if anyone in here has a family, listen, at the end of the day, I don't, want to have the best of my hours going to my Legal Shield business. I want to have enough of my hours going to, support my goals, but the best of me, I want it to be towards my family. All right, so it just helps everything come into alignment. And again, it just was a missing link I had. It might help somebody right there. The tracking system, listen, whether you use the old school stuff, which is handwritten, paper notes, you take a business card, staple it to a sheet of paper. My mentor, Colleen, talked about, when I first asked her for help, how do you get into group? And we had a big meeting to start off with a hospital, like 10,000 employees was like one of the first shots I had. And she goes, dude, what do you know about the person you're meeting with? And what do you know about the company? And I'm like, well, I know they're a hospital. And she's like, no, man, you're running in there and you're not differentiating yourself from any other salesperson that calls on them. Have you thought about Googling them and the person you're going to meet with, you should find out some nuggets about them. Do they have any hobbies? Are they involved in any nonprofit work? Do they have kids? And we found out this guy had wrote a song and teaches seminars and all kinds of crazy stuff. And when I walked in and I was able to share some of that stuff with him, you could tell he was like, wait a second, you're not just here trying to sell me something. You actually took, it was just, I can just tell you it's a difference maker. So, you want to be able to take notes before you even show up on the company. Maybe they were just recognized one of the top 100 places to work in your town or in your city or your state. You should just not spend a lot of time on it, but just a quick nugget to drop kind of breaks the ice and helps them again realize you're not just there for a buck, that you actually care. And wouldn't you agree in this career, we're actually here because we care about people? And obviously, the more people we help, the more income you can make. And it's the old saying, you help enough people get what they want, you can have everything that you want, all right? So here's what I use for the high-tech people. On my phone, I have an app called Card Munch. When I go to a meeting, I get a business card, I take a picture of it. On my phone, it's like linked into my LinkedIn account, and I can take notes, and then I can email it to somebody I pay to keep up with all my stuff now. Because it starts to get to be a lot, and you either obviously need to start having people that can keep up with it or have tools or systems in place. Like on Shield Nation, there's a marketing and retention system. I plug every person I've ever met with into that tool, and it just kind of keeps dripping on them throughout the years, throughout the weeks, throughout the months, and again, a way for me to stay organized. And maybe we can talk more about any of those questions in the Q&A. So does that make sense? High tech, low tech, whatever you want to use, you need to have a way to track, to be able to inspect what you expect, and to be able to have a system and a calendar that keeps you organized. Pretty basic stuff, but I bet if I asked any of you today, show me your calendar, you might not know what you're doing for the next 2 weeks coming out of here. And if your calendar is not full, obviously your bank account probably isn't full either, right? So we want to figure out how to fill up the calendar. All right, now, I don't want to spend a lot of time on who I used to be, but you can see some of the top athletes in the planet are some of my best friends. I used to be involved in sports marketing. This is a wedding I was at with the all-time NFL rusher. And one thing I learned from these guys is, you want to figure out how to get on a team with some great players. I mean, Emmett would have never broke the record and hold it still today if he wouldn't have had people that could block, if he wouldn't have had a quarterback that could get that handoff right every time, if a receiver couldn't run the route and distract the defense to give them an extra second, to break through the hole. Obviously, being on a team is important. And one thing I didn't do is I thought I had to do group all by myself. And so one thing I want to share with you today is hopefully you'll have 2 goals coming out of here, figure out how to get on a team. And I'm talking in relation to a team that's doing employee benefits and how to then create your own team. All right. So the first step is to get on a team and then create your own. Now, again, in this 4-step cycle, here's the best part. You don't have to do all of it good. Here's where I was a little over a year ago. I wanted to do group. I wanted to start calling on companies more. It just worked great for being a dad and having a family. Kind of the stuff at night and the stuff on the weekends was going to be a conflict with putting kids to bed, reading stories, tucking them in, all that kind of stuff. And again, that's my priority. That's what's important to me is spending that quality time with my family. Well, the first thing I did is I said, man, here's what I don't like to do. I don't like to sit at a desk and make phone calls. But if we can ever get to a decision maker, who cares how good I could show up and present to anyone if I don't have any appointments? Now, I tried to do appointments myself. I realized it wasn't my bag. I mean, I was about a 5 out of 10, and I had to have a lot of rejection, a lot of no's, and you probably have tried to make calls, and maybe you're great at it. Now, here's what I did. I started looking on my team saying, who is scared to go talk to people, but they love sitting behind closed doors and talking on the phone? So what I did is I took a football team concept, and you can walk out of here today taking that same concept. Listen, you should get in the war room, and you should be looking at, talent. How can you recruit somebody who loves to make calls? And for you, they could be in your organization, and they could be your appointment setter. Or maybe you don't want to go out on the calls. Maybe you want to be the appointment setter, and you can say, hey, listen, do you want to do sales? B2B sales? What if you had appointments provided for you with companies that were interested in our product and the appointments were already lined up? Do you think you could maybe bring on some different talent? Because the problem I found is I was trying to recruit professionals and telling them they had to go do all this stuff. And when I started to tweak a few of these things where I found somebody to play every position on the team, that's when we had an explosion. All right? Now, here's kind of the team and the networking and the relationships. Like I said, you don't have to do great all 4 phases. You just have to focus on what you like and what you're good at. Does that make sense? I mean, you ever heard the old saying, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life? So we all obviously love the service or we wouldn't be here. We love the opportunity that the service could provide a great living for us or we wouldn't choose this as a career path. But like I said, if you can look at the group arena and figure out what you like and what you're good at, let me just give you a couple stories. One of my appointment setters lives in Columbus, Ohio. I live in Florida. Isn't that interesting? So your team doesn't have to be local. When I first started, Colleen's not even on my team. She lives in Michigan. You know what I mean? And we started collaborating and networking together. You should meet some people, maybe even in this room or that are going to be in these D workshops today. This is where a lot of the group people will come today. You're going to have some of the best, employee benefit specialists gracing the stage in this room today. And you could buckle in almost right here to figure out every one of those phases on how to do it from start to finish. Okay? But here's a couple other things. You want to be part of a team? Like I said, it's a bunch for one person to do. I had a little link I was going to show you. Teamwork makes the dream work. It was this crazy video. It was about 30 seconds long, but I can't even explain it. It was just, you guys understand the power when a lot of people do a little bit and the amazing results, an organization can have. When you find out how to get people that are good on the phone setting appointments, and that's what they love to do, I have people that are setting me 3 to 5 appointments a week. And I don't set any of the appointments. Now, how do they get compensated for that? Again, I'll be happy to answer that in a Q&A session. If you see me around the hotel, we'll have a beer. I'll answer any questions. Like Colleen said, I don't want to leave here keeping anything from you. All right? Maybe there's just the one thing you can take away to, again, have a breakthrough. If you already have a team, Maybe, now here's how my deal rolls, all right? I have somebody who sets my appointments. I go on the decision maker meeting. I do the enrollment, and then I have somebody else do the paperwork and key everything into my marketing and retention system. So all I do is I show up and present, I do the enrollment, all right, and then somebody else does everything else. They get half in my deal with them. So I give them half. So today, maybe you love to work the phones. Maybe you could find somebody in the room that says, hey, if I set appointments for you, would you run them, right? And then they do what they do best, meet with the decision maker. Like if you sent Colleen or Don or some of these people in the room on appointments for you, man, it would be really a great way for you to learn all 4 divisions of the business, okay? And then, of course, the company has field trainers. And, of course, your team that you're connected to, whether it's the Amelia organization or the Hoffman organization. I mean, I made a mistake when I was new of following people that didn't have what I wanted, all right? And if you're not careful, you will too, because you'll find people you like, but they become your workout partner, and you guys are trying to hit goals, but neither of you have hit them yet. So a workout partner should be really for accountability, but, you know, the coaching and the things that you take should not be necessarily from your workout partner. Does that kind of make sense? You know, if you want to figure out how to write 1,000 memberships, you should learn from somebody who's wrote 1,000. If you want to figure out how to open up a group, you should talk to somebody who's opened one up. You know, if you want to figure out how to have, like Mr. Wilson was talking about, 50 to 91% participate, you should be in that workshop right there, because that's what he's doing on a, you know, in and out consistent basis, okay? And I'm not going to get into a lot of time here, but a lot of people go, well, how do you find professionals? I just use a tool on the Shield Nation website where you can find professional resumes, you know, from people who like spit out their whole background, and you just pick up the phone and you call them. I'm looking for appointment setters all over the country. I'm looking for people who love to do B2B sales, pharmaceutical folks that are used to calling on companies, and you guys get the concept right there. So sometimes you have to use tools in order to help you go a little faster. Let me talk about cold marketing as we kind of wind down and get into some of the interactive things. Cold marketing, in my opinion, is usually a bit harder to break into, meaning the people don't know you. So think about your list. If I made a list of everyone I knew, and let's just say that Veronica was on my list, okay? And I say, hey, Veronica, it's Matt. I'm really excited. I've taken a new position, and I've started a new career. Do you by any chance know who runs the HR department at your company? Do you by any chance know who the owner is? Have you ever met the owner of your company? Do you know who the CFO? I mean, I wouldn't ask her like all those questions, but find whatever flows best for you. And I'm just asking all the people on my list. I'm not going, hey, come to my house. I want to show you a video. I'm not saying, hey, I'm coming over. I'm just saying, hey, listen, I'm not even really talking to them about anything other than, hey, I've started a new career. Do you know who runs the benefit division at your company? I was wondering if maybe you could tee things up where they'd take a call from me. See how that's kind of halfway warm? Maybe on your list. Or, you know, I would challenge you guys to look through your Facebook contacts or your LinkedIn contacts. By the way, I don't follow any Legal Shield associates on LinkedIn, only Facebook, right? LinkedIn's like where I don't want all the Legal Shield mess, and it's not like the friendly talks and the rah-rah. I mean, but Facebook is more appropriate for that stuff. On LinkedIn, I'm trying to keep my network tight. You know what I mean? I want just professionals that are from different industries, and that's where my insurance folks kind of all gather and so on and so forth. But I bet if you look through your social media contacts, I did this the other day. I accept my friends back from high school, and you guys have reconnected with folks, but I never slow down to think or see what they do today. I mean, I might see some of their posts or some of the stuff I wish they wouldn't post, you know. But, I mean, I would challenge you leaving out of here, hey, what if you just looked at your social media and said, I want to find out what all these people do now that they've all grown up. You would be amazed. Some of them are HR directors today. Some of them own a company today. Some of them work in finance today. Some of them know somebody that you want to know, and will you do a group anywhere, or will you do a group anywhere, right? I mean, you will go wherever you need to go. If you won't, call a field trainer, call somebody in your support team. They have folks that will go do the presentation for you and work out splits with you, okay? So the cool thing here is you got a great career that has no territory. That's another reason I didn't get into insurance or real estate. You know, I was going to be limited to a specific territory. I didn't want to deal with all the licensing headaches and the continuing education headaches of those career choices. And I just love that it was, you know, a lot simpler and a bigger playground here. But in cold marketing, you ever heard the old saying, it's better to give than receive? Let me give you a couple nuggets. Veronica does this great. Veronica does a ton of work with, you know, the Cancer Society. And I mean, she sits on boards all over the place, and she volunteers a lot of her time. She also owns an insurance company. All right. But guess where she meets probably a lot of folks. And I'm sure the reason necessarily wasn't up front to meet folks. But you know who has a lot of time to volunteer? Usually spouses of people who own companies. Usually people who own companies. Usually companies will put campaigns together and kind of, hey, let's all go build a Habitat for Humanity house. Hey, let's go all help support this cause. And So if you just got out of your house and volunteered a little bit, I mean, you could make it a whole family event. You could make it a husband and wife or just an event you do by yourself. But man, I'm telling you, rewards will come when you give. I mean, it will come back to you and you'll receive. So think about in your community where you could volunteer. See, a lot of the employees are stuck at work. They can't volunteer. So the people who do show up to volunteer, you guys get where I'm going with that one concept, all right? Here's something, again, I told you, look at your social media. I would be very careful. There's a workshop I heard, I think Mr. Malloy was going to do about how to use social media. I mean, think about this. When you walk into a room, and let's say you're going to join your local chamber, how they see you is like, if you mess up that first impression, you know, a lot of the guys are like, oh, there's that, don't, no, he will talk your ear off. He will give you every brochure. I mean, and that's kind of how social media is as well, I found out. You know, if you show up and you're posting just crazy stuff and I mean, people are like, I got to figure out how to delete that guy. I got to figure out how to delete that girl, right? So, I mean, your image is everything. People are at the end of the day going to do business with people they know, like, and trust, and they respect. And certainly people are going to give referrals to people that they feel comfortable knowing if they gave you a referral. Let me give you a funny example about that. So I go in and do a group, 700 employees. I think, you know, today there's 300 or 400 of them on the books. All right. In that enrollment, a guy goes, he's selling another product. He's selling an all-state type product. All right. And he goes, man, I have never seen so many employees like just hover around a voluntary benefit. At the end, I bought them lunch that day. I said, hey man, can I buy you guys lunch? I'm sure you're hungry. So I just bought them lunch. Didn't even want to talk business. Okay. The next day we were going to be at another location. The next day it was weird. They bought me lunch. And after the enrollment was over for those 2 days, they said, hey, man, can we hang out after? I got a couple questions because we have other groups. My point is this. If I would have been doing weird stuff or not being, you know, a servant to those employees if I hadn't practiced all the different things to be ready to possibly, I had no clue they were going to show up at that enrollment sitting beside me. See, a lot of us kind of try to leave out of these events and have like a perfect plan. And there is no perfect plan. I mean, I can tell you about folks that I knew that I didn't know they were going to move next door to that lady in Chicago. The house was for sale and somebody moved there and they were the owner of a company. And they became neighbors and all of a sudden she got into a group, you know. And so you'll never be able to figure out how it's all going to piece together. The point is you need to be ready. You need to obviously be a master at your craft. And obviously you guys, I'm preaching to the choir because you showed up today to learn the skills that you need. So social media, volunteering, networking events, groups. Reference USA, that's a free source. You know, the guys who set my appointments, the gals who set my appointments, they can just log in at the library, Reference USA. I'm not able to teach you how to do it. You know, you could probably go to your library, but it's a free source. I'm going to answer questions just in a second. It's a free source where you can go find out certain size businesses, certain zip codes. And I mean, it just kind of tells you who all you want to talk to. And again, you'd have to figure out how to get good on the phone, but there's a ton of scripts for that in the back office. And I know they're going to talk about that in some of these workshops. Here's really what I found out about a script. If you want to know my honest opinion, there's nothing magic that you're going to say to anyone. If they're not interested, who cares what you say? Here's the best part. If they're looking to enhance their wellness program, if they are open to new benefits and being cutting edge and retaining employees, they're interested in whatever you say and taking a look at it. So you can't say the right thing to the wrong person and you cannot say the wrong thing to the right person. The point is just, you know, having something that's short, sweet, to the point. The goal of the meeting is to get the meeting. It's not to get the enrollment. The goal when making a call is just so they'll meet with you or the person you're sending in to meet with them. The goal of the decision maker meeting is not to like service and retain the business. It's just to get the environment set up to do a great enrollment, right? The goal of the enrollment isn't to service and retain. It's just to do a great enrollment so you have business to service and retain. Does that make sense? So each step, some of us are focusing on the end result and it's getting in the way of getting, you know, a runner on first, so to speak. Okay? Local papers. I went to a meeting with somebody who runs the broker division now for Legal Shield, and she said, you know how I made it in the insurance business? I would get my local paper, and it was amazing the information they would tell you. Hey, a new company's coming to town. You know what she said she'd do? She just read her paper, browsed through it, and then she would show up and give them a welcome to the neighborhood gift basket. Every other company's trying to call to sell and to get to be their buddy and to try to, you know, sell them something. She was trying to be a friend. Hey, welcome. It's amazing. I mean, you can learn about volunteer events in your local newspaper. You can learn about, check this out. Here's a free conference connecting local entrepreneurs with federal contracting. So here's a place that I don't have to pay to put on, local entrepreneurs who are interested in learning more, blah, blah, blah. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to that conference if it works in my schedule. Guess who's going to be there? Probably business-minded folks that probably love leveraged income. You know, the thing I learned about hanging out with all these professional athletes is they always looked for things that had a system that they didn't have to be at. A lot of people are like, well, I don't have time. I mean, how's Emmett going to be running the ball every Sunday and then running, a real estate franchise? He didn't. He had somebody he found to run the real estate franchise. Does that kind of make sense? He had somebody good who could cook in a kitchen that could run the restaurant. So if you put that same owner mentality on, how do you find people? You're the CEO that could be in charge of your appointment setting division, your enrollment division. Obviously, and the more around the country you can spread your wings, obviously the larger your brokerage house and your distribution network will be. All right. Now, this says your political campaign. You know, don't you almost feel sometimes if you've been around and building your business and trying to become the legal shield man or woman in your community, don't you sometimes feel like a politician, right? You know, you're trying to say hi in a polite way to everybody. You want them to have a lasting impression. And, you know, this is just really simple, knocking doors of businesses. You know, you're kind of going door to door to local businesses. I know somebody in Texas, and Mr. Wilson told me about this young lady. She just shows up to companies and she says, hey, listen, has somebody from Legal Shield stopped by to give you your welcome lunch for your employees yet, as being one of our neighbors in the community? And they're looking at her going, do what? Has Legal Shield been by yet to give you your free lunch for all your employees? And they're like, no. And she's like, well, who would I talk to about getting that scheduled? You guys eat, right? And they're like, yeah. And she's like, great. We're just going to do a little lunch. We just want to talk for 15 minutes about what we do. And if any of your employees are interested, they'll know we're in the neighborhood. And she never goes after trying to get payroll deduct. I mean, she writes a lot of business. She opens a lot of groups. And now, obviously, that's not for everybody. But I'm, again, giving you ideas. You know, you could have your own political campaign, okay? And then here's one I said, how would I ever meet some other insurance people to keep adding to my list? You guys see job fairs posted all the time, yes or yes? I mean, everywhere in your community, somebody's holding a job fair. I used to think, well, I'm not going to go because I'm unemployable. I'm not looking for a job. I love my career. But guess what I found out? People went because they were dissatisfied. They were tired of playing the resume game, tired of the big promises corporate has, and then the rug getting pulled out. But the thing I didn't realize was, guess who was at the job fair? The HR team. The HR people are sitting there. So I just was kind of being a fly on the wall, just kind of watching, one of these job fairs. And I was close enough to a table where the lady's like, hello, my name is Pam. I'm the director of HR. Do you have your resume? She didn't ask me, but she was asking somebody else. And I was there in a sense to try to, expose people that were looking for a career change. But I realized really what I should do there is try to meet the person on the other side of the booth collecting the applications. That's somebody in the human resource division. Does that make sense? So that's a free way you can get in somewhere where it's kind of like the bees all showing up to the honey. All right? So don't ever turn your back on a job fair. Now, this right here, when I learned how to get reference letters, and this is just kind of an added bonus for you, this exploded my business. I listen to the group call every Monday morning, and I usually don't catch it live. All right? Usually, thank goodness, they record these things. You can, listen to them while you're working out, or I listen to them while I'm fishing sometimes. You get your phone in the ear, and I live on the ocean. It's cool having the Atlantic Ocean as your front yard. Your kids can just play on the beach. Mr. Perry always laughs at me because I don't take my own fish off the hook. Don't even know how to fillet one, but, when your front yard's the Atlantic Ocean, you have to learn how to fish, right? Or surf, but I'm afraid of sharks. But anyway, it's a different topic. I'm on a group call one time, and I'm hearing Mr. Petrill talk about, man, if you can do an enrollment and then you can get somebody to give you like a reference letter, your cold market business could get a lot easier. Man, I learned a lot of the objections I got where people are like, you know what, I don't think my employees would need something like this. Or we've tried to bring in some voluntary things before, and there's just not a lot of good participation, okay? Now, I have today, April of last year, I didn't have one letter. Today, I have probably over 50 different letters, okay? Back then, I didn't have any letters. Guess who my first letter had to be? A friend. I said, hey, could you write a letter just about my character and how much I love the community? Would you be all right putting it just on, a white piece of paper and just sign it? It was something simple, like when I could walk into a meeting, I could say, hey, listen, in this packet is, I said, by the way, there's a letter, just somebody talking about how much I care about people, and I'm not going to obviously read my own letter to you, but just wanted to leave it in there for you so you have a nugget. So that's where I just had to start, because I didn't have one group that could give me an endorsement letter. All of a sudden, I opened my first group. Now, I didn't ask them the minute we opened the group, hey, can you write me a letter? I wanted to do a good job of servicing the account. Now, I only had one account, so guess what I did? Every Friday, I would go buy this box of chocolate-covered potato chips, and I would drop it off the whole first month to the payroll lady. Because I was like, man, I wonder if she's going to pay the bill when it comes, right? And I don't know any questions they might ask me, but let me just keep showing up. Maybe there were some employees I missed to talk to. But I was like overkill serviceman. And the owner took notice of that and said, man, I've never seen somebody come in from a benefit and then come in this often to make sure we were well taken care of. I said, man, I really appreciate that. Of course, I didn't let them know, hey, you're my first one. I mean, I didn't have anyone else to service. But it was amazing because about 2 weeks after that, I was in the area again. I said, hey, I was wondering if you could do me a favor. If I crafted up a little letter, I mean, I'm not suggesting you agree with everything on it, but would you mind taking a look? And if it made sense to you, do you think you'd put it on your stationery and just kind of scribble your signature on it? And maybe I could just use it for other folks that, have never even thought to look at a benefit like this. So I started getting these letters. Now, people say, well, what does your letter say? Instead of me telling you what they say, let me just give you the concept of what I'm trying to put in my letter so you can create your own letter. I'm going to give you some bullet points that you would want to have, and then you try to ask people today. If you have one group, maybe you can get them to give you a letter already. But when you're talking to folks that don't know you or that were a cold call or somebody you're walking into that has no clue who you are, these letters are like a 1% difference maker, okay? So I'm looking for things in a letter that would say, I'm glad that I didn't make the decision for my employees if they would have needed something like this. If you can get that in a letter, because guess what most of the folks I meet with do? They're trying to make the decision for their employees. I don't think they'd be interested. No, I think we already have an attorney and they could help them with anything they need. So I'm looking to put in my little reference letter a little nugget that says, I'm glad I didn't make the decision for them. I wanted to say something like, I was a bit skeptical, but I was amazed over half of them participated. I mean, if you can get that stuck in your letter, right? Because a lot of these voluntary benefits, they're thinking, man, I got to stop workflow to get a meeting with you, or I got to add you into a staff meeting for an extra 15 minutes, and nobody's even going to participate. I mean, a lot of my enrollments have never been less than 50%. Now, that didn't start off that way. Thank goodness I used a field trainer so I could learn how to do it the right way because it really sped up my closing ratio, all right? I'm also looking for things like it was just a simple 15-minute talk, and it was very quick, easy. It didn't really mess up the workflow. You guys get those couple bullet points. So I'm looking for a bullet point. Now, obviously, that letter on the right was really just me giving a couple bullet points, and then she went on to write all that stuff. And that was like, I mean, if I give that to that letter to people, I can't even really read all of what it says, but it's just talking about the value we brought to a company. An issue happened legally just right after they signed up. Legal Shield was there to provide, peace for the family and the employees. And man, they love Matt. This one just talks about Matt delivered peace of mind to my employees that they knew if an event ever came up. And then I try to get something like Matt's involved in our community and he's a family man. So you could get them to say something about just, you add that to the letter. So I don't say, hey, could you write me a letter? I used to ask that and they were always too busy to write me one, right? So I just say, hey, if I mailed you over a little template, could you take a peek at it? If you liked it, stick it on your letterhead. You can add or subtract anything you want. But again, the thing I'm looking for, if I didn't beat this in your head enough, is when I sit down, that they're not prejudging for their employees, that they let me talk to them. In the letter, it says it was just a simple process, only 15 minutes, and they were amazed that over half of the employees actually participated. And he's very involved in the community, and he loves to help people. All right? Does that help anybody right there with a little reference letter? Once I got these letters, I mean, literally, I didn't have any groups in April of last year. Now I have 50. And I use these letters all the time now. I have over 50 letters. I mean, there's not one company I've done a deal with that hasn't given me a letter. Matter of fact, when I sit down, one of my last statements is my goal is to get a letter from you when this is all over with because you love the service and you see the value it adds to your workplace, okay? Now, as I wrap up, I'm going to get into how to survive in group. And, we're coming to a close on this stuff. But, man, if you don't know your why, hopefully this weekend you can figure out why you're here. There have been 100 times at least, even since last April, that I've thought about quitting. I've had a lot of, insurance companies say, hey, man, you should come run our insurance division. Hey, you should come handle it. I mean, you get a lot of stuff that sometimes will distract you. But, I had to really hang on to my why. Listen, I wanted a career that I could work on my terms and give my family the best of me versus what any career would offer me that would give my family what's left of me. Okay? Again, I knew my why. I would challenge you this weekend to really get that figured out. Okay? Because, if you have a weak why, anything can distract you. A couple other things, you need to get plugged in. Coming to events like this, winning the trips. I have met some of my workout partners on the free trips the company sends you on. And today we're doing groups all over the country where I know somebody who I know, like, and trust because I've hung out with them. I've met them at the conference. I met them at the, briefings. I met them at the Super Saturdays. I mean, you can meet folks there that you can network with. Remember I said one of your goals should be to get on a team. Even if they're not in your actual organization, find somebody, hey, can I set up, I get people all the time. Can I set appointments for you? I get people all the time going, hey, listen, can you run appointments for me? I get people all the time, hey, listen, can you set appointments for me and I'll run them? So just figure out in that cycle how you can kind of put your own group together. And again, the end goal should be, how does that group become folks in your organization? Does that make sense? All right. Make a list and keep adding to it. Treat this business like a job, even if you have to in the beginning, just so you kind of get the routine down. And again, that was one of my biggest downfalls. No boss, do what you want. It's always my wife, like, hey, you want to take the kids to the park? Hey, you want to go to Disney? Hey, I wanted to go fishing. Hey, the waves are good. Let's go. Whatever the case was, there's a lot of distractions. And so if you schedule your time, treat it like a business, I'm telling you, you'll have a whole different result. Don't hunt only elephants. You guys know what that means? Listen, if you haven't done group before, I mean, initially you're going to think, man, like, let me tell you the end result with that hospital. Never happened. Okay? I mean, 10,000 employees. I'm like, woo, that's it. And I mean, it's just such a long cycle, so many decisions. The bigger companies I found out usually plan benefits years in advance. So even if you do get them to say yes, like I have like 30,000 employees we're going to be enrolling between now and January 1st in a lot of different accounts with these insurance companies. And I mean, this was set up months ago. You with me? And they started talking about this stuff years ago. Hey, we're looking for a legal plan. Hey, we're looking for an identity theft plan. It was just, I happened to be prepared at the right place, at the right time, and networked myself in a professional manner where they could know, like, and trust me. Position yourself as a Legal Shield expert, the subject matter expert, and folks will come looking for you, okay? But don't only hunt elephants. I found out that it was hard to make a living just going after the big deal. The easiest accounts are the 50 employees or under. That's what Mr. Wilson taught me. The small groups, 50 and under, usually the owner is going to answer the phone, or his wife or her husband will answer the phone. Usually it's just a small, intimate group where they have meetings all the time. They don't have headquarters in this city and locations all over, and they can make a decision a lot quicker. Plus, smaller companies, man, if one or two of their key employees have an identity theft problem, I mean, it's going to be a big blow to the production of the company because their mind's not going to be as focused at work. So the smaller they are, the more they can't afford to have these hiccups happen, right? So the easier it is to get them to go, man, this is great. And of course, usually small companies don't have big budgets for great benefit packages. So of course, adding more things that the employees can pay for is a real win. So go after those 50 and under, especially if you're just getting started. Hey, wouldn't you rather mess up on a 50 versus a 500, right? And again, that's why I say always work with a field trainer. Personal development's been huge. Mr. Hoffman's always poured into me that, you become who you associate with. You become the books you read, the tapes you listen to, the classes you attend. And I mean, if you're not a reader, I hate to tell you this, but that might be a reason you possibly are stuck at the level you're at right now. You should be reading, again, books, anything that's inspiring you about people who are good in business or people who are good in sales or whatever it is that you're kind of feeling you're stuck on, all right? I talked about finding a workout partner. I wanted to warn you about a workout partner, though. Again, I used to have workout partners, and we would try to give each other advice. The problem was we both were very sad. We were always stuck at director, all right? Because we're trying to teach each other how to get to executive, and neither one of us ever done it. So a workout partner should just be somebody, again, who kicks your butt and you kick their butt. But, you want to be part of like a mastermind group of following folks like your platinums, like your executive directors that have been there and done it. Okay? So, again, just be real careful with that. Discipline yourself for the disappointments. One thing I didn't know about group is, it's almost like if anything can and will go wrong, it will. And a lot of times things get rescheduled. So group is really hard if you have a full-time job because you're thinking, man, I got 10 vacation days. I'm going to do group. And you get an appointment, and then all of a sudden they tell you you're going to do an enrollment at their staff meeting next Monday. And so you take a personal day. You only have 10 of them, so you take one. And then you get there and a big problem happened. Guess who's not going to get to see the employees today? You. All of a sudden you're kind of bummed out because you're like, well, shoot, I only got 9 more days left. And before you know it, throughout a year, if you're going to do this and do it right, your vacation days are going to be gobbled up, and maybe out of those 10 vacation days, you only actually got to do 2 or 3 actual presentations. So that's why I'm telling you, while you have a job, you should partner up with somebody who could run appointments for you. You should try to recruit people to put on your team that can go for you. You should just try to network and find people who could do those business models for you. Does that kind of make sense? And then eventually, when your book of business gets good enough, you can have options to either stay in that career or walk away and go full time, okay? Have realistic expectations. Mr. Wilson taught me you need to have about 40 things in play. Now, when you're brand new, that sounds like a lot, but I would just tell you that, again, stuff gets rescheduled. Stuff gets pushed back. Stuff isn't ever going to go the way you plan on it going. You just have to be prepared for disappointments. You have to be prepared to be rescheduled. You have to be able to have a ton of stuff in play. I hit executive director my 13th month in the business years ago, and I think I've missed once or twice since. And in order to be able to hit those numbers month in and month out, when you have a team that comes and go, I mean, you got to have a lot of stuff in the pipeline. And, at the end of the month, I'm sitting there and we're like, hey, we got, 10 more deals. I mean, I can't just have 10 people I think I'm going to talk to, or one company with 10 employees I think that's going to get the job done. So, coming out of here, you should have a goal like, how do I get 40 groups in play? Meaning that they're either looking at information, they're waiting to talk to the decision maker. It's just kind of in the funnel somewhere of going from step 1 to step 4, okay, in the sales cycle process. And then the last thing I told you is build a team. I mean, how many of us understand what I've said about if you don't have a team yet that can set appointments, do enrollments, do all the paperwork, and it's just you, get on a team where you can learn from people who can do those roles. But your goal should be, how can I recruit somebody in your downline, all right, that you can override, that will set appointments for you? Does that make sense? So whatever deal you give them, you're also going to be able to override it. How can I get somebody who can be in Georgia to run appointments? We can get them appointments, and they can run the appointments, and then you can override it. How can you get people that can do all the paperwork, and you can override it? Does that make sense? So that should be a goal. Get on a team, and then at the end of the day, you want to build your own team to have massive leverage. Now, to wrap up in the workshop, I think we've got 15 minutes, okay? And I'm going to kind of blend this into a Q&A session. Now, a lot of these exercises are very simple. I'm just going to hit you with this list one real quick because this is a topic that, again, I really struggle with. In the beginning, I was like, they say, hey, make a list. And I only came up with like 40 names on my list. Now, how many people realize that, you probably know more than 40 people? I was doing a lot of prejudging. I was doing a lot of things that, hey, they probably don't have enough employees. Hey, now I'm too embarrassed to go talk to them yet. I mean, I was doing a lot of funky things. But I'm going to do this phone book exercise, all right? So has anyone ever seen one of these? Phone book? Remember these phone books? Here's how I learned how to build a list, all right? If you open this up, and I'm just going to challenge y'all real quick just to get out a clean sheet of paper and see if you think of somebody you haven't yet thought of. This is a local phone book. Now, I'm not going to go through this and look at every business, which most of you might do. I'm not going to look at every business yet, okay? What I'm looking at is like the first thing says accountants. So when I hear that topic, I'm wondering, who do I know that's an accountant? And I write them on the piece of paper. Then I go to the next page. This says bookkeeping, accounting and book. Do I know any bookkeepers? Do I know anybody in advertising or direct mail? Do I know anybody in air conditioning? I opened up an air conditioning group. I was doing this exercise. I'm like, wait a second. I know the dude from church who owns the air conditioning. I left them off my list. See what I mean? Who do I know that, a lot of air conditioning in Florida. That's probably as thick as the attorney section. All right? Who do I know that's an attorney? Who do you know? Who do you know that's in auto parts, used and rebuild? Who do you know that sells? I mean, some of these things will help you trigger like, oh, I know that car salesman, even though you're in the auto parts section. Who do you know that sells beds? Who sold you your bed at the furniture store? Who's in retail? Who works at the beauty salon? I mean, did you ever think somebody at your hair salon actually owns that place? Whoa, probably haven't even talked to your salon owner yet. Who does alarm systems? All right, who, the cable satellite people, cellular wireless, churches, dentists. Who's your dentist? Have you talked to your dentist yet? Listen, I'm really picky, by the way. Let me give you a funny thing, and some of you guys are going to say, man, that's pretty cold. I couldn't do that. Here's a story. So I was getting some new blinds made. You guys saw how little my kids were? If you don't have kids yet, be prepared to replace a lot of things, okay? So they had broken some of my blinds. So I went. It was like on a Saturday, and, you're not dressed up on the weekend, especially with as many kids as I have, because they're tugging on you all the time. You got to carry them to get them anywhere, right? So, I'm in like workout clothes, and I'm going to go to this factory that is a blind factory. Well, I walk in, and I'm like, hey, this is like the header of the blinds. I need it to be this length, and I need some kind of blinds to replace. Yada. So I'm giving the deal to the working side, and I go, by the way, I said, do you guys offer benefits to the employees here? Because I'm already there. I'm about to cut them a check for hundreds of dollars for this new set of blinds, right? And I just figured, hey, while I'm doing business with you, I think it's just right that you give me a few minutes to talk to you about what I do. It doesn't mean you have to do business with me, but if you won't even listen to me, I'll take my blinds somewhere else. Now, the funny thing was they said, you should go talk to the office side on the other side of the building. So I walk around. I'm carrying two of my twins. I'm in workout clothes, probably looking like a homeless guy that stole some kids. I don't know how I look, but I wasn't wearing a suit. And I walked in. I said, hey, is the owner here? They told me that I might find her on this side. And they said, well, she's back there. What do you need? And I go, well, I'm buying blinds. I just wanted to say hi to her real quick. Wanted to compliment her on, the operation. So I wasn't there like, hey, I'm trying to sell her. I was like, hey, I just wanted to compliment her on the operation. Guess what she did? She came right out, right? They got her. She came right out. They said, hey, I'm here getting some blinds. Just wanted to introduce myself. I'm, in the area. I actually do some stuff working with insurance companies and employee benefits. And I said, you have a broker you work with? And she said, no. And I said, well, I was wondering, I mean, obviously today's not the right day. I didn't bring any material with me. I just brought my cute kids. And I said, I was wondering, I'm getting some blinds made on the other side. I was wondering if I could maybe get 15 minutes with you to talk about, what I do and how I could help increase your productivity and really be a value for your employees. She goes, I don't think they'd be interested. And I go, well, if they wouldn't, I don't think I'd be interested in getting my blinds done here. She goes, what do you mean? And I go, well, if you couldn't even give me 15 minutes to kind of visit with you about what I do, I can go get my blinds done at one of these big one of these big retail operations like Lowe's or Home. I just wanted to do business with somebody in my community to help you grow, to give back to the community. And she goes, let's look at our schedules. It was so weird. I mean, I had to be like, give me some respect. I'm giving you respect. And a lot of you guys are too afraid to do what I call follow your dollar. Okay, so I mean, you could go back through and look at where you're taking your dry cleaning, where you're getting your hair done. I'm not saying be rude. Like if your tax person won't even give you a few minutes to go, hey, listen, you got all these clients that probably deal with identity theft. I mean, if you couldn't even give me some referrals, I mean, I'll send people over to you for taxes. But if you won't even hear about that, maybe it's best if next year somebody else does my taxes. And a lot of times, if they see you're serious, but in a polite, I mean, you'll probably mess up a few times. You might have some altercations. But if you can master that, being serious but respectful, how you're serious about it, it really helps. You guys get the concept of the phone book exercise, right? I mean, I've opened a lot of groups. I could redo this today and I would write down names today. And I've done this exercise a lot since April. So I know that you can get some more names of people that either own companies or work at companies. You could walk out of here after this weekend with a whole list of to-do on your calendar for who you're going to call. Hey, do you know the decision maker there? Hey, do you think you could get me where I could take you guys out to lunch? Hey, how good of friends are you with Susie? Do you think we could go to lunch together and you could introduce me? I mean, ask for help. People love to help, all right? Work on your why this weekend. Hey, I said take a picture and tag me on it. I gave you my Facebook link. I got a lot of friends that over the years have just watched when they thought in the beginning, hey, you're probably going to go to jail doing that thing. And in 2.5 years when I quit my job, a lot of them are like, holy cow, it actually worked. Can I still do it with you? A lot of folks didn't want to do it in the beginning because they were like, well, how's it working for you? I'm like, I'm still trying to figure it out. How's your job going for you? I'm still at it. All right. And then when I started getting checks, like recently we've had some $10,000 plus months. And I mean, I just start sending like screenshots, and I'm at home in my swim trunks. Or I have some of you guys that follow me see like fat stacks of applications. I'm like taking a picture. I'm with my kids, like love everything I do today is impacting my children for tomorrow. And my point is, if you see me in the hallway or if you want to take a picture, you'd be doing me a favor. All right. Because people start going, what were you doing? What were you talking about? And I'll be like, remember that thing? All right, that you've been watching. Obviously now it's just moving in the right direction, getting a little better. So y'all have heard the saying before, the best revenge is massive success. So instead of trying to convince people, just get focused on doing your thing, and then they'll see that you were serious, that you were going to go with or without them, and before you know it, people will want to just jump in line and start following you. The old speed of the leader is the speed of the pack, all right? I'll answer any questions you have right now as we wrap up. I don't want to go through any more of these deals. But anybody have any questions? We've got about 5 or 10 minutes left. Let me go to this young lady right here first. Any questions about anything we covered? Go ahead. Call somebody else. I mean, here's all I'm saying is, if they're not going to let you back in, I would just maybe, I learned from Colleen that gifts go a long way. And maybe you could just say, hey, man, listen, I don't know where things went wrong, but, I really just was hoping I could have another shot to come in and visit with you. Here's a box of chocolate. I'm going to be in the area next month. If you have any time in your schedule, just love to stop by and show you what's new. And, hey, if it doesn't work out, enjoy the chocolate. Or just something simple. But, I mean, listen, if you kill people with kindness, eventually, even old Scrooge comes around, right? All right. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Did everybody hear the question, by the way? Everybody heard the question? She basically said she went into a dentist office. Her dentist felt like she made a mistake and, hasn't been able to take it to the next step in short. What I would just tell you is, man, I think mistakes are great. And what my advice would be to you is maybe that opportunity is closed, but guess what? You're probably not going to make that mistake next time. So some of us are so afraid like that you make the mistake and then you're thinking that's it and you're done. No, man, I would just try to mess up as fast as you can. I'm serious because let's say it takes 100 mess ups to finally figure it out. I mean, I wouldn't want to take 2 years to get all 100 mess ups out of the way. If you could get all 100 mess ups done in a month, you see in 31 days you could be a pro. So don't be afraid of failure. Seek it out. I'm telling you, breakthroughs come, and obviously you're a lot wiser today. Like if you could go back today knowing what you know now and do it all over again, you would have done it a little different. Okay? And that's why my focus is never on building a team first. My focus is selling the plan first. I found the best rep is a satisfied customer. I found out I'd rather have your group business than to have you in my business because a lot of people get in and they never do anything. Right? So, I mean, I really don't care if you want in or not. I mean, I'm looking for a few people that can kind of do the thing, and you don't need a lot of people to go after the employee benefit division. I'm telling you, you don't need a lot of people. All right? I'll get back to you in 1 second. My man, you're next, all right? This young lady just has had her hand up. Go ahead.
In 15 minutes or whatnot, are you able to go through the proposition and set an enrollment date that would nurture a great enrollment? Does that all happen in 15 minutes typically?
No. I mean, if you couldn't hear a question in the back, she said, hey, out of those 50 groups since last April, has that all been handled like from start to finish in 15 minutes is pretty much your question, right? You go in and give them your spiel, get everything set up. No, I mean, we asked for 15 minutes, and look, out of those 50 groups, I probably messed up 200 to get 50. You with me? But a lot of times, and again, you get 15 minutes, but then once they're interested, they start asking you questions. I mean, I block about an hour off for an appointment, even though I only asked for 15 minutes. Now, one of my first questions is, hey, listen, are we still good for 15 minutes? I ask them that right up front. Hey, are you the only one involved in making a decision? Because I don't want you to have to learn how to do my job in 15 minutes. So if you want to grab whoever else is, helping make these decisions, I'll just knock it out for both of you, right? And so in that time, it helps me understand how quick I got to get to the point. Sometimes like, no, I only got 7. Something came up. Great. So I'm going to get right to it a little quicker. And sometimes they look, okay, it's 7. And they've heard enough to know they're not interested. That's okay. But a lot of times when they are interested, of course, it doesn't get done in 15 minutes. I don't think I've ever had any one of them that's all tied up from start to finish in a bow in 15 minutes myself. Okay, so sometimes it's taken, 30. I mean, then they start getting their calendar out and they start looking at their next staff meeting. They start planning stuff. And, so you need to give yourself some room, I think, in between appointments and just, again, have that expectation that it's really hard if you're trying to walk in and hammer it all out in 15 minutes. But maybe that's why I'm going to be sitting in some workshops with Katie Huff and with these other folks because they probably have figured out how to do it in 15 minutes, right? Does that answer your question? All right. I'm going to get this guy back here in the blue shirt. Go ahead. Sure. He said, what is a field trainer? I've mentioned field trainer a lot of times. Corporate has, if you go in your back office, I don't really know exactly where to find them, but you can call corporate and go, hey, how do I find a list of field trainers either in the country or in your area? Okay? And Ms. Huff is going to tell us how you find that. In the group scoop. Okay. So I think they've moved to actually from the group scoop to the back office now because I haven't seen a group scoop. Yeah, corporate told me they stopped the group scoop. So I don't know if you knew that or not. Maybe you're getting a secret group scoop. But anyway, in the back office, there's a list of group trainers. Now, here's what I can tell you about group trainers. It's somebody that corporate picked to be a group trainer, meaning they have integrity. They're going to treat you with respect. A group field trainer, though, here's what you should expect from them. You should expect that they're going to want half of what they do with you. So if you're calling on a company with 50 employees and you write 30 of them, they're going to take 15 apps. You're going to take 15 apps is usually how that deal works. Sometimes some expenses got to come off the top, depending on they had to drive, and stay the night in a hotel or whatever the case was. But a field trainer is somebody you should hook up with. I was against using a field trainer in the beginning. I thought, man, I'll figure it out. Guess what I did? I thought, I want 100% of this. I don't want to split it. I got 100% of nothing. Because things came that I wasn't expecting, whether it was in the decision maker meeting, and I never even got to enroll. See, I wanted somebody to go on the decision maker meeting so I could just be quiet and watch how they had taken a decision maker meeting and got it to an enrollment. That to me was worth, you can have all the business if I can learn how to do this right the first time, right? I didn't want to go try to do an enrollment. I remember the first one I tried to go do myself. One guy goes, hey man, can I take it home and ask my wife and think about it? I was like, sure. Well, guess what every other employee goes? Cool, well, we'll just go think about it too. Guess how many apps I wrote? 0. Man, I brought a field trainer in. I watched what they said to the decision maker. I watched how they had all that set up in advance to deal with the employees. They walked out with a stack of apps. I got half. I'm like, why didn't I learn to share before? Because the knowledge I got was so much more valuable than me trying to do it on my own. So you can find field trainers. They're priceless. All right? Yes, ma'am. I think we got time for maybe one more question. Good question. She said, if you go into an appointment, it doesn't go great with the HR, do you try to, do the box of chocolates or get to the owner? First of all, I always try to get to the owner first versus the HR. You know why? I mean, a lot of times if I can just say the owner, hey, listen, you got employees coming in distracted. You probably already obviously know that. You're probably expecting them to perform as close to 100% as possible for the wage you pay them. My job is to help them have that ability, because instead of these outside distractions bothering them and keeping them, distracted at work, I'm going to help them have an avenue to get those distractions knocked out so they can perform better at work. Usually then the owner goes, hey, go talk to my HR lady, tell her I sent you, or they'll call. So I try to go from the top down. That's not always possible. I guess to specifically answer your question, I would try to get to the owner, but you got to be really careful, because at the end of the day, the HR is kind of going to be who helps administer the enrollment. So you still need them to be your friend, and they might get really offended. So the owner still might say yes. I had a guy get an owner to say yes at a car dealership, but the HR didn't want it. And not one person came to the enrollment because the HR didn't distribute any information, didn't help. You see what I mean? So you need those folks still to be your friend. All right? Listen, guys, here's all I can say as we wrap up. The next presenter you do not want to miss if you're serious about group. I mean, this young lady, Patty Nelson, not only has, made 6 figures a year for quite a while, but she has a business that is 100% as earned. You understand what I mean by that? Meaning she's making 6 figures, whether she ever goes and writes another membership or not. All her money is not advanced, it's just paid as earned, because she has so many employees on the books that she did it the right way and it continued to stay on. How many of you guys want to do it the right way, where you just had to do it once and it stays on the books? I think she's wrote well over 5,000 personal memberships, and of course she does a lot of field training, so probably more over like 10,000, because she does a lot of splits. Thanks for your time. If I can help you during the conference, man, just stop me. And God bless, man. I wish you the best in your group success. All right, thanks a bunch.